Hello, you gorgeous people out there, and welcome back to another video on the Rocket Hub. My name is Philip, and today we are going to talk about the hidden meaning of SpaceX's moon contract. Back on April the 16th, NASA surprisingly selected the lunar lander proposal by SpaceX, based on the Starship vehicle, to be the spacecraft to land the next American astronauts since Apollo 17 and the very first woman on the moon by the mid to late 2020s.
We're really excited to bring you the announcement of who NASA is going to continue to finish out the human landing system and take humans back to the moon. NASA has chosen SpaceX to return us to the moon.
That outcome was probably what many of us dreamed of, but let's be honest, no one really expected it to be NASA's choice with strong competition from Dynetics and the Blue Origin-led national team. But in the end, NASA shocked the world and picked Starship as their only hope for their lunar landing. But this $2.9 billion contract is way more important, and its meaning goes way deeper than it seems at a first glance. SpaceX's Starship program is a privately funded space program with the goal of developing a rapidly and fully reusable launch system capable of lifting 100 tons of payload and people to orbit, the moon, Mars, and even beyond. The development program happening right now has produced a lot, including many explosions and decisions some can't really relate to, but despite all the controversies, NASA still decided to choose Starship's lunar lander variant, which was developed exclusively for the NASA contract to be the next lunar lander. The lunar Starship differs a lot from the prototypes we have seen until today. It will most likely be painted white, has solar panels covering its nose cone barrel, a few sideward windows, and lacks aerodynamic surfaces and a heat shield. Additionally to that, it is equipped with 24 small Methalox hot gas thrusters to use to land on the lunar surface without shooting regolith everywhere and threatening the lander itself. But the real deal is the pure volume of the payload area has to offer. Around 1,000 cubic meters of pressurized space, minus a bit for the Methalox thrusters, can be used for 2 astronauts, lunar surface equipment, and a lot of storage for samples. Due to the contract, SpaceX is now required to perform an uncrewed demonstration landing on the moon and is set to land astronauts on not earlier than 2025. Which is interesting because the official goal for the next lunar landing is 2024, 1 year earlier. But why would NASA set the lander up for 2025? Well, NASA's time goals are nearly always far away from reality. I mean, the first SLS was thought or meant to be for 2019. Yep, we're in 2021 and the first SLS haven't even been assembled yet. But the real interesting stuff about SpaceX's moon adventure is the reason why SpaceX even received the main contract despite the other teams being made out of renowned companies with a lot of influence in the Senate and therefore NASA's source of money. The main 2 factors involved in the decision-making of the Artemis program's managers were the cost of the lunar landers and their capabilities. And Starship beats its concurrents by quite a lot in both aspects. Due to the massive size of it, it is capable of lifting as much as one of the competing landers, entirely. And despite being the most ambitious vehicle of them all, Starship was yet the best option. That's mainly because of the Dynetics lander wasn't really capable of carrying anything more than just the 2 astronauts and a bit of equipment, and Blue Origin's lander was too complex and required technologies on it not even developed. SpaceX were the only competitor able to present some achievements in lunar lander development, and indirectly. They of course haven't got a lot of real hardware on the HLS Starship, but they have their explodey prototypes, and NASA sees them as prototypes of both Starship and the lunar lander, meaning SpaceX has already conducted test flights of their lander proposal. The other teams had mock-ups and maybe ideas of propulsion systems, but nothing more than that. And then there's the required funding for the development of the lunar landers. The Congress allowed NASA a budget of around $3 billion to give to the companies for further development of their lunar lander proposals. and both Dynetics and the national team exceeded this budget by a lot with the amounts they wanted for the lunar landers. The national team asked NASA for $4.5 billion and Dynetics even for $5.4 billion, which is nearly double the budget NASA had to offer. But SpaceX asked for just $2.9 billion, staying in NASA's budget and therefore not requiring anything extra funding at all. So SpaceX had the most capable and at the same time cheapest proposal, which in the end won them the contract. But there's a third reason why NASA chose Starship. That reason isn't really officially stated yet, but NASA representatives and executives have talked about it in the past multiple times. And that third reason might change everything at NASA and SpaceX. The lunar lander version wasn't just chosen because of all the advantages it had compared to the other landers. The official goal of the Artemis program is landing astronauts on the moon to stay and prepare for further crewed exploration of the solar system. And with that, NASA means, of course, crewed Mars missions. But the NASA engineers don't have the slightest idea of how to get to Mars with their own Orion capsule and the SLS rocket. They would either need to develop a completely new spacecraft and launcher to get people to Mars or assemble some kind of space habitat for their crew to live in during the journey, as shown in Andy Weir's The Martian novel and the 2015 movie. That's quite interesting. What they show there is a real option NASA is thinking about. But that would in fact be an option, but knowing NASA, this stuff wouldn't be ready until deep into the 2030s. SpaceX, on the other hand, is already quite far in the development of their Mars vehicle. Starship is set to fly to Mars in the mid to late 2020s, almost 1 decade before NASA would even be able to get to Mars on their own. And if NASA doesn't want to land in the backyard of SpaceX's Mars Hotel, they need to cooperate with SpaceX in terms of Mars exploration. And NASA executives have officially stated that they do believe in SpaceX's vision of Starship being a fully and rapidly reusable launch system, and they do indeed think about setting up a Mars program with SpaceX in case of a successful collaboration in the Artemis program. The Lunar Starship contract acts as some kind of test for future crewed Mars exploration, and this hidden meaning in the contract has a huge impact on what to expect in the next years. I could even go that far and predict their first crew of NASA astronauts landing on Mars in the year 2027 on board a SpaceX Starship vehicle, way earlier than NASA could achieve by themselves. The Artemis lunar lander contract is an important change in the Starship program. Now that NASA is involved, the funding SpaceX receives could enable the program to speed up even more. Starship isn't just an experiment anymore, it is part of the governmental moon program and will play an even bigger role in the future. The fact that NASA officially states that a fully and rapidly reusable launch system is possible will shock the industry. Every competitor focusing on competing with the Falcon 9 has to realize that Starship-like vehicles are the real deal now. NASA's support helps SpaceX to start the development in the aerospace industry that can't be denied anymore. The era of expandable and partially reusable launch systems is about to end. New and revolutionary designs will take over the market. Multiple established companies like Northrop Grumman, Draper, and Lockheed Martin, and many others have experienced this change by not being offered contracts for their more traditional lunar lander designs, showing the industry that they maybe have to overthink the entire philosophy because of Starship. And this is the hidden meaning of SpaceX's lunar contract, a signal to the entire aerospace industry and the rest of the world, a signal that the future is coming and they are falling behind. And that's already it for this week's video. If you enjoyed watching, why don't press the like button or subscribe to your channel for more weekly content. I'd really appreciate it a lot if you did so. We see ourselves in episode 3 of SpaceX Deep Dives, which will release in about 1.5 weeks. And until then, I'm out. Cheers!